Simon Cowell, the resolute media magnate with an incisive gaze. Emerging from obscurity as a forgotten mailroom assistant, he ascended to become the preeminent force in the entertainment sphere. He once captivated the global audience with his extraordinary aptitude for discovering talent, an unparalleled gift within the industry. He was the individual who elevated unknowns to stardom. For more than 20 years, he has been the definitive arbiter of television influence. He ignited countless musical aspirations and established himself as the embodiment of stringent standards in superior broadcasting. Simon Cowell, the visionary behind the colossal successes of American Idol, The X Factor, and Got Talent, shows that introduced a new cohort of international celebrities, amassing immense wealth, an expansive collection of opulent residences and high-performance vehicles, and unparalleled renown. Amassing earnings reaching $100 million annually, he possesses a real estate and automotive portfolio that would elicit envy even from the wealthiest individuals. Yet, concealed behind his celebrated facade lies a profoundly solitary man, one who has grappled with periods of despair, endured a severe back injury from a calamitous accident, and is now preparing to bequeath a fortune valued at $600 million. The inheritance he leaves behind is truly astonishing. Residences span from the United States to the United Kingdom, luxury automobiles hail from Italy and Britain, and broadcasting rights extend across more than 70 nations. His holdings include a $24 million beachfront property in Malibu, a $15.5 million estate in Beverly Hills, a lavish New York apartment, and a stately dwelling in London. His collection of over 20 luxury automobiles features a Bugatti Veyron, a Rolls-Royce Phantom, a Ferrari 575, and a Bentley Azure. He then startled the world by declaring, "I am not leaving anything for my son." Perhaps concealed beneath that formidable exterior is an immense internal void, in a declaration that profoundly moved his admirers. However, even the most brilliant diamond is formed under immense pressure and within darkness. Simon Cowell, prior to his fame and affluence, was merely an impressionable boy, adrift in the cacophony of a family burdened by overwhelming expectations, yet starved of genuine affection. Born in 1959 in Lambeth, London, Simon spent his formative years in the tranquil village of Elstree, Hertfordshire. His mother, Julie Brett, a former ballet dancer and a captivating socialite, was graceful, somewhat detached, and perpetually in transit. His father, Eric Cowell, also known as Eric Selig, a music industry executive and property developer, valued excellence but seldom evinced paternal warmth. Simon later reflected, "He never uttered the words, 'I am proud of you,' even during times when hearing them meant the most to me." Simon was not an innate prodigy nor an exceptional student. In reality, he faced significant academic challenges, attending Radlett Preparatory School and subsequently Dover College. He struggled to integrate, to adhere to established norms, and to meet the anticipated benchmarks. After barely achieving a general certificate of education in English and sociology, he withdrew from formal education. Lacking direction, restless, and already experiencing a sense of personal disappointment, he undertook various sporadic employments, drifting from one unpromising opportunity to another, until his father, perhaps moved by compassion or a sense of responsibility, secured him a position in the mailroom of EMI Music. This marked his initial entry into the realm of entertainment, albeit in a nearly invisible capacity. Every morning, Simon recounted, "I delivered coffee to producers who wouldn't even acknowledge my presence." He was an unseen figure in a world fixated on public recognition. Day after day, he observed celebrated artists pass by as he processed their fan correspondence. He was the background player in an arena that idolized only the spotlight. He departed EMI feeling frustrated and humiliated, convinced his destiny held nothing significant. Subsequently, when he sought alternative employment, repeated rejections further eroded his diminishing self-assurance. He found himself compelled to return to EMI, not by choice but due to a lack of any other viable option. However, amidst the wreckage of that humility, a new resolve began to germinate, a quiet insubordination. In 1983, equipped with a worn telephone directory and sheer desperation, Simon became a co-founder of Fanfare Records. It was far from glamorous. The label specialized in workout tapes and novelty records, but it was his own venture. At long last, he had something that was unequivocally his. Then in 1986, Fanfare released Sinita's So Macho, and it became an unprecedented success. While a relatively modest hit, it provided sufficient revenue to cover expenses and, crucially, instilled in him a nascent belief in his capabilities. Yet this period of success proved to be transient. In 1989, Fanfare Records faced collapse, leaving Simon bankrupt. He relocated back to his parents' home, occupying his childhood bedroom. Approaching 30 years of age, he was financially destitute and deeply humbled. Years later, he would confess, "I would often weep in the restroom after work. I believe my life had reached its apex at the age of 25. But even beneath the profound despair, the inherent drive persisted." Simon Cowell's ascent was not a fairy tale. It was a brutal confrontation with self-doubt, rejection, and humiliation. Yet it also served as a testament that occasionally, greatness is not innate, but meticulously crafted within the crucible of failure. He did not merely stumble into stardom. He persevered, he contended, and he meticulously constructed his empire, piece by painstaking piece. Long before his name resonated globally, Simon Cowell was an anonymous figure operating behind the scenes, navigating the unforgiving landscape of British popular music. It was in 1986 that he struck commercial gold with So Macho by Sunita, an effervescent pop tune that ascended the music charts, granting Cowell his inaugural substantial taste of triumph. That song was more than just an infectious melody. It represented a lifeline. Following years of rejections, unsuccessful undertakings, and multiple dismissals, Simon finally possessed concrete evidence of his belonging. However, success did not arrive as a comforting embrace. It manifested as a formidable challenge. Cowell was subsequently engaged by BMG as an A&R consultant, a role that empowered him to identify nascent talent and nurture it into chart-topping achievements. He had not yet achieved celebrity status, but he had commenced cultivating what would evolve into his most potent asset, an almost supernatural instinct for identifying potential stars. Throughout the 1990s, Cowell spearheaded S Records, securing contracts with novelty acts and television personalities. While the music industry derided his involvement with songs for the Power Rangers and World Wrestling Federation wrestlers, Simon remained resolutely focused. He understood a crucial element that eluded his detractors. Mass appeal equated to influence. In 1995, he produced a rendition of Unchained Melody that dominated the UK charts for 7 consecutive weeks. It constituted a significant commercial triumph and another foundational element in the structure he was quietly erecting. "People mocked what I signed," Simon later recalled, "but I wasn't aiming to impress critics. My intention was to connect with people, and that's the essence of pop music." Then arrived the pivotal moment, Pop Idol in 2001. When Cowell assumed the role of a judge before the cameras, his candid and unvarnished commentary instantly ignited both controversy and intense fascination. Viewers either intensely disliked him or found themselves unable to divert their attention. He was not acting. He was simply articulating thoughts that others harbored but lacked the courage to express. And "I am not being impolite," he would frequently preface his remarks, before delivering critiques sharp enough to wound even the most inflated egos. The program format experienced an explosive surge in popularity. The success of Pop Idol directly paved the way for American Idol, where Cowell became a household name in the United States, achieving peak annual earnings of $75 million. By 2004, he had launched The X Factor in the United Kingdom, and 2 years later, Got Talent, a franchise that would eventually extend its reach to over 70 countries. He was no longer merely a judge. He had become the mastermind of global entertainment. Yet, preceding every triumph, there existed opposition, scrutiny, and personal sacrifices. He was branded Mr. Nasty, a heartless automaton, even cruel. Critics questioned his ethical practices, and former participants accused him of emotional manipulation. Simon's response: "I am aware that I come across as harsh, but if you deceive people regarding their talent, you are essentially stealing their dreams. I would rather cause them pain with the truth than offer them comfort with a falsehood." By 2010, Cowell had fundamentally redefined the concept of a powerful television personality. He was instrumental in the creation of stars such as One Direction, Leona Lewis, and Susan Boyle. He served as a judge on multiple continents and was honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, However, beneath the impeccably tailored suit and the steely gaze, there was a discernible toll. I was working 20 hours a day. I would go to bed and question myself, is this truly what I desire for my life? Cowell once articulated. Fame did not fill the emptiness. It frequently exacerbated it. He had achieved success, but at what ultimate cost? Much like a spotlight that unexpectedly erupts into an inferno, the 2013 scandal not only caused damage, but scorched every facet of Cowell's meticulously constructed existence. Simon Cowell garnered international headlines when it was disclosed that he was expecting a child with Lauren Silverman, the wife of a close friend. The news broke like a media conflagration, igniting public outrage and a sense of betrayal. It was not merely a scandal, it represented a fundamental rupture in the very foundation of his carefully constructed life. Andrew Silverman, Lauren's then-husband, initiated divorce proceedings citing grounds of adultery. Tabloid publications dissected Cowell's character, friends began to distance themselves, and public opinion shifted dramatically. For an individual who had consistently commanded the public's attention, this was a moment when he desperately wished he could vanish. It was not something I am proud of, Cowell later admitted in a rare display of vulnerability. But Eric arrived and he transformed my life. Perhaps he even saved it. The birth of his son in February 2014 became more than a turning point. It was a form of redemption personified in tiny fingers. Overnight, Simon transitioned from a work-obsessed titan to a man learning the art of presence, of gentleness, and of reading bedtime stories. He exchanged transatlantic flights and television contracts for Lego sets and children's books. Each evening evolved into a cherished ritual: bath time, bedtime, story time. For a man who once spent more time aboard private jets than at the family dinner table, it marked a profound emotional revolution. He once remarked, "My priorities underwent a complete metamorphosis. My world was suddenly no longer defined by ratings or contracts. It was centered entirely around him." Yet, the weight of the circumstances that preceded Eric's arrival never entirely receded. The scandal had cost him more than just his public image. It had exposed a vulnerability that Cowell had consistently masked with bravado and an iron grip on control. In subsequent interviews, he frequently revisited that period, not to offer justifications, but for introspection. "I lost friends, I lost trust, but I gained something I never realized I needed," he stated. He offered no excuses, only unvarnished honesty. The guilt, he confessed, became a quiet, ever-present companion, surfacing during moments of solitude, in the spaces between laughter and lullabies. It served as a crucial lesson, not merely in understanding consequences, but in the profound act of personal rebirth. Simon Cowell's inner circle observed the palpable shift almost immediately. No longer the detached magnate issuing commands from his office, he started inquiring about school events and taking time off to be present. His associates noted a newfound gentleness, a humility previously absent. While some commentators suggested he was merely performing a narrative of atonement, those closest to him maintained its authenticity. Fatherhood had been his salvation. One long-standing colleague revealed anonymously, he was already on a downward spiral even before the scandal. Eric provided him with a reason to halt, to mend, to start anew. Cowell's experiences with Eric became a powerful demonstration of how even the gravest errors can pave the way for the most profound personal changes. He once characterized fatherhood as the singular element he never realized he required, yet now cannot envision life without. Nevertheless, the discord between public absolution and private remorse persisted. He harbored no illusions of universal forgiveness and was uncertain if he even merited it. Yet he understood the necessity of improvement, if only for the sake of the young boy who referred to him as Dad. The public discourse transformed from tabloid sensationalism to a more intimate, universally relatable narrative of a fallible individual striving for renewal. The media eventually shifted its focus, but Cowell did not forget. He continued to bear the weight of his past decisions, even as he constructed imaginary castles at bedtime and escorted his son to school. He described this period not as a resurgence, but as a profound self-examination, a sentiment he echoed years later with a subdued, more reflective tone. Perhaps the most poignant realization is that life-altering miracles can sometimes arise from the wreckage of our most significant failures. In Simon Cowell's circumstance, the cost of such a miracle was substantial, a price he paid in full with every bedtime embrace, every whispered apology, and every commitment to a better path. This was his second opportunity, and for the first time, it had nothing to do with viewer numbers. It was about profound affection. The spotlight never truly extinguished for Simon Cowell. However, beneath the dazzling facade of television fame, a tempest of personal sorrows and physical collapses brewed silently yet unyieldingly. It commenced with the departure of the most grounding presence in his existence, his mother, Julie Brett. Her passing in 2015 struck him with the force of an invisible tremor. She had served as his guiding light following his father's death in 1999, his emotional bedrock. In her absence, Simon admitted to feeling utterly adrift, later remarking, "I had never experienced such profound solitude." He immersed himself in his work, yet without the same fervent drive. Instead, he drifted through extended nights, barely sleeping, pushing through reality television commitments, in boardroom deliberations as a spectral figure merely going through the motions. Friends described him during this period as someone who seemed to reside permanently in his office and never displayed a smile. The void only intensified, despite his possessing all that the world envied. He confided privately that he frequently felt a pervasive emptiness. In his own words, "There were times I would look in the mirror and not recognize the person I was becoming, neither physically nor emotionally." Then the physical collapse occurred. In August of 2020, while test driving his new electric bicycle in the courtyard of his Malibu residence, Simon experienced a severe fall. The impact was so intense that it resulted in multiple fractures to his spine, narrowly averting paralysis. The agony was unbearable, akin to a jagged blade lodged within his spinal column. Immediate surgery was performed, requiring the insertion of metal rods to stabilize his backbone. For several weeks, he was immobilized. For months, he had to painstakingly relearn the act of walking. It was not merely the physical torment that shattered him, but the abrupt loss of autonomy. For an individual who had meticulously constructed his empire upon precision, image, and opportune timing, being confined to a hospital bed felt like a cosmic reprimand. In a rare interview, he confessed, "I believed this might be the end. I was consumed by fear, not solely of expiring, but of being forgotten." Just as recovery seemed within reach, another cruel turn of events transpired. In 2022, Simon endured a second fall from his electric bicycle. Although less severe than the initial incident, it profoundly undermined his confidence. "I genuinely believed I wouldn't be able to stand up again," he recalled. His medical professionals issued stringent directives. He was advised to revert to a protein-rich diet to rebuild muscle mass, a significant shift from years of dedicated veganism. Simon, who had embraced a plant-based lifestyle for both health and ethical reasons, was compelled to compromise for the sake of his well-being. This decision weighed heavily on him, serving as a stark reminder of how little control he truly possessed. "I felt as though I was betraying my own principles simply to persevere," he admitted quietly. And then came a transformation that wasn't merely internal, but one the world could not overlook. Over the years, Simon had experimented with Botox and various cosmetic procedures, pursuing youthfulness under the incessant pressure of public scrutiny. However, as age advanced and procedures multiplied, his appearance began to alter in ways that surprised his admirers. By 2021, viewers observed his rigid facial features, a fixed smile, and swollen cheeks, prompting headlines such as "Simon Cowell, What Happened to His Face?" The man once known for his critical assessment of others' appearances now found himself the subject of judgment, derision, and even mockery. Memes proliferated virally. Online discussions debated whether he had overstepped boundaries. Simon later acknowledged, "I went a bit too far. There came a point where I looked in the mirror and genuinely did not recognize myself. I decided enough was enough." He ceased cosmetic treatments, allowing nature to take its course. "Let it age," he stated, "let it show." The emotional toll of that period extended beyond superficial concerns. Simon began to withdraw from public engagements. He limited his involvement in America's Got Talent, attending only select tapings. He refrained from fronting new programs. The individual who had once commanded primetime slots across multiple continents now favored quietude. In many respects, he became a subdued version of his former self, not due to shame, but from sheer exhaustion. The characteristic sharpness in his eyes diminished. Interviews became less frequent, his tone more subdued. He spoke more about Eric, his son, and less about professional achievements. "I no longer need to be on every screen," he confessed. "I simply want to be present when Eric laughs." However, the public's intense scrutiny did not abate. Every wrinkle, every rare public appearance, every new strand of gray hair was dissected by the tabloids. Paparazzi drones followed his walks in Malibu. Whispers of new surgeries circulated even when none had occurred. The spotlight, once his domain, had transformed into a powerful magnifying glass. Yet, despite these challenges, he did not entirely vanish. He reappeared, moving more deliberately, visibly aged, but imbued with a profound humanity. The once seemingly invincible Simon Cowell had become a figure the audience could connect with. Vulnerable, bearing the marks of experience, and undeniably real. Throughout these trials, his enduring legacy remained intact. But behind the public persona was a man who had navigated a series of physical and emotional upheavals, emerging not with ostentatious display, but with quiet humility. As one former colleague observed, "It's ironic, the world perceived him as an untouchable icon. However, it was in his vulnerability that he achieved his greatest significance." In the autumn of 2024, just as Simon Cowell was beginning to establish a rhythm in his life, marked by quiet routines, paternal tenderness, and hard-won physical resilience, tragedy struck once more, this time affecting a different aspect of his emotional landscape. Liam Payne, a prominent member of the group One Direction, a band meticulously curated and guided to global stardom by Simon himself, tragically passed away following a fall from a hotel balcony in Buenos Aires. The global community was stunned. But for Simon, the shock resonated deeply. The loss was not merely that of a former protege. In his own words, it felt like the loss of a son. With tears in his eyes, he confided, "Liam was like a son to me. I've lost another cherished individual." These words, coming from a man long recognized for his unemotional, sharp-witted persona on television, had a profound impact. The world witnessed a father figure devastated, not on a stage or in the glare of the tabloids, but within the fragile confines of grief, a realm understood only by those who have truly loved and experienced loss. The news reopened old wounds that Simon had spent years attempting to conceal. It transported him back to '99, the year he lost his father, and then again to 2015, when his mother, Julie Brett, passed away. Julie had been his unwavering support, the one who consistently believed in his vision. Her death had already plunged him into a deep abyss of sorrow, which he once described as desperate unhappiness. Now, with Liam's untimely death, it was as if that profound grief had never truly receded, merely lain dormant. The anguish of witnessing someone so young, brimming with life and potential, vanish without warning, served as a chilling reminder of life's unforgiving nature, its indifference to status, whether legend or those they helped elevate. The media characterized the event as shocking. Fans lit candles and flooded social media with heartfelt tributes. However, for Simon, the world seemed to fall silent. Projects were temporarily halted. Interviews were declined. Show pitches were shelved. He withdrew, choosing instead to devote himself to his fatherhood role with an intensity that surpassed all previous commitments. Individuals close to the Cowell household revealed that Simon began spending nearly all his waking hours with his son, Eric, stepping away from the relentless media spotlight he had once commanded. They described a man now deeply introspective, whose once insatiable ambition had been supplanted by late-night discussions with his son, peaceful strolls along the California coastline, and an unspoken need to safeguard the innocence that Liam had so tragically lost. This was more than mere sadness. It was a period of contemplation, a dawning realization, perhaps even a profound reckoning. Simon, who had dedicated his career to shaping stars and capitalizing on talent, was now confronting the immense personal cost associated with fame itself. One Direction had represented more than a commercial triumph. It was a symbol of aspiration, youth, unity, and now that symbol had been irrevocably fractured. There are no words, Simon had posted publicly, yet in reality, his silence conveyed everything. Behind closed doors, he was reportedly reviewing early audition footage, rewatching the initial moments when Liam and the other members stood nervously before him, full of optimism, unaware of the tumultuous journey that lay ahead. This was a private rite of mourning, encompassing both a life extinguished in a segment of his own professional legacy that could never be reclaimed. Through this entire experience, what emerged was not solely sadness, but a quiet recalibration of priorities. Simon began to reevaluate what held the most profound meaning in his life. The dazzling lights, the crimson carpets, the sensationally successful productions, their significance diminished. What endured was Eric, his family, his well-being, and tranquility. The individual who was once consumed by viewer numbers was now discovering the value of quietude. The young man, once desperately eager to validate himself to the entire world, had become the father, holding his son's hand just a bit more firmly as night fell. Liam's passing, as profoundly sorrowful as it was, served as the ultimate catalyst that grounded Simon in an existence far removed from the glare of public attention and the bustling atmosphere of film sets. It is a harsh irony of destiny that sometimes only profound grief can offer genuine insight. However, for Simon Cowell, Liam's departure was more than a devastating event. It was a reflection of his innermost self. And in that mirrored image, we perceive not merely a parent in mourning, but a man who has at last learned, through considerable pain, the true meaning of releasing one's grip on the superficial world to hold on to what is genuinely precious. Following a period of immense sorrow and life-altering suffering, Simon Cowell embarked on what many might describe as a quiet rebirth. No longer the severe arbiter of televised judgment, he transformed into an individual molded by the responsibilities of fatherhood, the awareness of his own mortality, and a profound desire to reevaluate his core values. The era of continuous smoking, sleepless nights dictated by stringent deadlines, and the relentless pursuit of audience figures had concluded. In their stead, early morning Pilates sessions, meticulously planned nutrition, moments of contemplative silence, and the cherished ritual of bedtime stories shared with his son became the new rhythm of his life. Once a constant presence on screens worldwide, Cowell has considerably reduced his public engagements. These days, he graces a judging panel only for select, impactful seasons of Got Talent. His energy is now predominantly directed towards endeavors that support children and cultivate creative expression. These are initiatives that embody his conviction in offering second opportunities, in nurturing those who are often overlooked, much like how he himself once discovered budding talents from obscurity. Those who knew him in his earlier years would barely recognize the current Simon Cowell. He is more reserved, more mindful of the present moment, and profoundly devoted to his family. Presently, Simon resides in his $15.5 million estate located in Beverly Hills, sharing the residence with Lauren Silverman and their son, Eric. However, this is but one of his many luxurious homes. His impressive property holdings also include a $24 million beachfront estate in Malibu, an upscale apartment on Manhattan's Upper East Side, and a distinguished historic mansion situated in London's Holland Park, each residence subtly hinting at the different phases of a man who once lived life at an accelerated pace and delivered judgments even more swiftly. His collection of automobiles stands as a brilliant testament to his past affluence, featuring over 20 exotic vehicles, including a Bugatti Veyron, a Rolls-Royce Phantom, a Ferrari 575, a Bentley Azure, a Jaguar Eagle Speedster, and several classic Aston Martins. Each car symbolizes a man who was once captivated by the pursuit of flawlessness, but now parks them with considerably less ostentation. Collectively, these assets contribute to an astonishing net worth estimated at $600 million as of the year 2025. His considerable wealth primarily originates from highly successful television production franchises such as The X Factor and Got Talent, alongside his earlier involvement with American Idol, as well as music ventures facilitated by Psycho Entertainment. Remarkably, Simon continues to earn an estimated $45 million annually from select appearances and production royalties alone. However, financial prosperity, in his current context, is no longer the ultimate objective. Despite this immense fortune, Simon Cowell made a decision that surprised the public almost as much as any headline he has ever generated. He has declared his intention not to bequeath any of his wealth to his son. "I don't believe in passing on wealth to the next generation," he once stated. "Eric needs to learn the value of hard work. That's how I built everything I have, and that's the lesson I want to give him." This perspective has garnered both criticism and widespread admiration. In lieu of providing an inheritance, herein, Cowell has pledged that the vast majority of his fortune will be directed towards charitable organizations dedicated to assisting underprivileged children. This decision echoes the young boy he once was, striving to find his footing in a world that held such high expectations. He is leaving behind not merely monetary assets, but a guiding philosophy. It is a declaration that personal worth is not defined by what is inherited, but by what one diligently earns. This is a rare stance within an industry often built upon inherited advantage and established lineage. It portrays Cowell not simply as a shrewd businessman, but as a man seeking profound personal redemption. Behind every significant decision lies a deeper, more resonant truth. Simon Cowell is endeavoring to reshape his enduring legacy. His disengagement from the pursuit of fame is not merely a withdrawal, it represents a fundamental transformation. The man who once exerted considerable influence from a judge's seat now discovers profound fulfillment in school fundraising events, child welfare advocacy campaigns, and evenings deliberately spent away from the glare of the spotlight. He no longer seeks out applause. Instead, he cherishes the sounds of laughter echoing around his family's dinner table. His priorities have fundamentally shifted from cultivating celebrated artists to raising his own child. His personal evolution is characterized not only by his philanthropic endeavors, but also by a newfound form of courage. It is the courage to embrace a less prominent role in a world that once made him feel too significant to ever falter. It is the courage to offer apologies, to gracefully step aside, and to exhibit vulnerability before those who matter most. The Simon Cowell of today is vastly different from the individual who once dismissively dissected the performances of aspiring singers with a sardonic smile. He is a father who has stood on the precipice of life and returned with an unwavering determination to be truly present. He is a man who has weathered ridicule, public controversy, agonizing physical injury, and profound personal loss, yet chose instead to rise, to forgive, and to evolve. The genuine narrative behind the television icon is not one of unyielding perfection, but of deeply human imperfection, coupled with the immense grace required to persevere. This is because sometimes the most brilliant illuminations cast the deepest shadows, and within those subdued spaces, a transformed individual quietly reconstructs his life.